Welcome to Missionary Monday, where we talk to real-life missionaries and hear about their experiences living in the mission field. I will also share some missionary stories with you, and we'll hear testimonies of how God has used people, just like you and me, to tell others about Jesus. I can't wait to get started. How about you? Today we have Josh with us. You know, boys and girls, I have known Josh since I was probably about 12 years old. His family had just moved back to the United States from being missionaries overseas. And we lived in the same area. We went to the same church. We kind of grew up together. We were homeschooled. We ended up both going to Mission College of Evangelism together. And then we even went to Southern Adventist University together. So we have like a lot of history. And then Josh met Stephanie, and he has been married to Stephanie for 6 years. They have one little boy. How old is Nathan? Is he 2?
Nathan will be 2 in September.
Okay, so almost 2. And by the time you guys all hear this, he will be 2. So he's 2, and they have a baby girl on the way, like any day. Like it should have been 2 days ago. So yeah, they are waiting excitedly for a baby girl. Well, Josh and his wife, Stephanie, they are missionaries, but I want them to tell you all about it. So Josh, where are you guys serving as missionaries? How long have you been there? Kind of tell me a little bit about what it's like there.
Hi, everybody. Warmest greetings from Cambodia. It's a small country, and the money is called real, and the language is called Khmer. And most of the people are Buddhists. And the people group that Stephanie and I are targeting are what's called a minority, which has a different language and culture and religion than the rest of the country. And the people that we work with are Muslims.
Oh, wow. So you have the people group that is Buddhist. That's the majority of the country. But then the smaller group within that, and they're Muslim?
The Muslim group that we live with are called the Cham people. There are 400,000 Cham Muslims in Cambodia that speak a different language than the rest of the country. And there are only 3 baptized Christians that we know of.
Wow. That is like considered an unreached people group, right?
Yeah, right. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me tell you a little bit about Cambodia. So it doesn't have seasons like America. There's 2 temperatures in Cambodia, hot and hotter than hot.
That sounds like you're sweating a lot.
But it's the perfect temperature for growing mangoes.
Oh.
And our property has more than 100 mango trees.
Oh man, that sounds absolutely incredible.
The people in Cambodia are very friendly. They like when people come visit their country. They don't speak English, they speak their own language, but they have heard the word hello, hello, and when they see white people walk by, they smile and run alongside the road to meet us and say, hello, hello. They have motorcycles pulling big, long trailers on the street next to cars, old cars, new cars, cow carts. Cow carts haven't been used in America for a long time, but they still use stuff like that over there.
So it's kind of like a covered wagon that like cows pull.
The cow carts in Cambodia only have 2 wheels.
Okay, so it's like a little cart.
1 yoke of oxen pulls it, so only 2 cows will be pulling it instead of several.
Wow, that's so neat. So you end up going along the street and you have like donkeys and cows and cars. Are there like cars, motorcycles, minibuses, that type of thing?
Yes, Cambodia doesn't make their own cars like America does, so they're very expensive and they're brought in and they keep fixing them and fixing them. And maybe we
Yeah.
would put the cars in museums or in junkyards, but they are none of that there because everything is still being fixed and fixed over and over again. And they have little ponies pulling carts, and the ponies have little tiny bells, like jingle bells,
Yeah.
and you can hear the ponies coming.
Wow. So do you live in the country or is it kind of like a city village?
Cambodia is a small country. There's only one big city, and then once you get outside the city, everything is countryside.
Okay.
And we are along a big river called the Mekong River.
So, what made you decide to be a missionary? Like what made you go, "Huh, I want to be a missionary." Did you just wake up one day and decide that, or was it something that you had been thinking about for a while?
So my family went to Cambodia when I was 7 years old.
Wait, that's the same country that you're in right now, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Back then, there was mosquitoes and bumpy roads, and I always loved the Cambodian people, and I wanted to help. But part of me wanted to live in America and drive on the nice, smooth roads here too. I saw my parents helping people.
Mhm.
After college, I decided to go for 1 year, and I
Mhm.
ended up staying for almost 4 years. God provided money that I needed. He provided friends that would
Mhm.
help me. He helped me help people that needed medical help. If I didn't know how to help them, I would bring them to the clinic in my car. I realized
Mhm.
that I already had spoken the language. I already learned the language when I was a kid. I had a lot of
Yeah.
friends, and God needed someone that was willing to go. The people there don't know that Jesus is coming back
Mm.
soon. So if you're not getting living your life to get ready for Jesus to come back soon, that's sad because he brings so much joy in my life and
Mhm.
in my family's life, and I want to share that he's coming back soon and that we can get ready to live in heaven with him and obey him.
Yeah.
That's really exciting to share that with people if they've never heard even his name before.
Right. Yeah, that is to be able to have like basically almost everybody you meet has never made that decision to follow Jesus. And so you have an opportunity with almost everybody around you.
The Cham people have never met a Christian before.
Wow.
And for Stephanie and I, going into their village, they're very welcome and opening to us because they're curious.
Mhm.
And we have met people that are older, grandparents, and they said that we were the first people from outside of their village that they ever met.
Wow.
And so, from the time that they are born until the time they die, we may be the first people that know who Jesus is that they meet.
Wow, that's incredible. So, as you've been sharing, like, what's a favorite scripture verse that is really been meaningful to you as you minister to those around you?
Joel 2:28 says, "In those days your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions. On my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit." For people like that have never met a Christian before,
Mhm.
sometimes they're scared. They're scared to ask who Jesus is. And they pray to their God, but they're not sure who they're praying to.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people pray and they don't know Jesus' name, but they're praying anyway.
Mm.
And they see Jesus in a dream. And they'll come to us saying, I saw someone, his face was so friendly, and he said he loved me. Or I saw someone in white. Can you tell me who that is? And
Mm.
they said it was so real, we weren't sure if we were awake or we were dreaming. In the Muslim religion, they believe their religion is the only true religion, and
Mhm.
it's sinful to ask questions about other religions.
Mhm.
So sometimes the only way that they can have an interest in learning about who Jesus is through a dream.
Huh.
And so that has been something that has happened to us over and over. Someone that had a dream came to us to ask us for a Bible or to ask us to tell them more about Jesus.
Wow. So basically, God is sending these dreams to them and kind of paving the way and opening the way for them to ask questions. And they come to you guys and ask, and you're able to share Jesus with them.
That's right.
Wow. That is really powerful. Well, it's got to be different living in a different culture, learning a different language, even though you did know it as a kid, but just to be learning how to reach a different people group. What has been something that's funny or some incident that's happened to you that you're like, "Oh, I can't believe I did that." Or they've laughed at you because you messed up on something?
In Cambodia, the culture is so different. They do stuff that we would never think of doing in America. From the time they were born, they were brought home from the hospital on a motorcycle.
Wow.
Because of the flood and the rains, the rivers come up really high, People live on stilted houses.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to their house, they don't say come in, they say come up to my house, because their houses have long ladders that go up there. And they keep their cows and their ducks and their chickens under the houses oftentimes. So sometimes it can be a little bit smelly, like a barn under their houses.
Right.
And we have had Cambodian people over for a meal at our house, and they were waiting and waiting, and the meal got over and they were still waiting for us to bring out rice, because they eat rice 3 times a day. And for them, a meal with no rice, say we were having sandwiches or spaghetti or potatoes, for them, if there's no rice, it's not a meal.
Right. They're like waiting for that. Well, where's the rice? And that's
They
funny.
didn't realize we were done with the meal. We were still
Right.
hungry.
It's like, we're all done. No more food. And they're like, but where's the
And
rice?
we like rice, and we got used to it, and we miss it if we don't have it for a few days. But for them, they feel hungry if they haven't had rice 3 times. And the Cambodian Bible,
Mhm.
when it was translated, they said, "Man does not live by rice alone."
Really?
Hmm.
So they've adapted the Bible to go along with their culture.
Yeah, because the people that the Bible was written for, daily bread or something like that, bread was synonymous with food, but rice is
Mhm.
synonymous with food in Cambodia. So if they ask you, have you eaten? They'll say, have you had rice yet?
Wow. Okay. Huh.
The Cambodian language has 33 consonants and 27 vowels. And so they
Oh
have
my word.
sounds that we don't have in English.
So you learned it as a kid. Coming back, was it pretty easy to just pick right up where you left off?
Yes, actually went to a gas station once and they said, how come you speak Khmer so good? And I said, oh, we used to live in a village over that direction. And the lady knew my dad's name. She said, oh, your dad's name is Arnold. He used to come buy gas here. And she ran in her house and got her photo album from her wedding. And she said, your dad was at my wedding. And
Oh,
she showed me the picture, and it was my dad and my little sister Hannah at
yeah.
her wedding.
Wow. That's so neat.
I'm blessed to be about an hour away from where I grew up, except for back then the roads were a lot worse. So we would have had to, there would have been no
Mhm.
way to get to where we live now, except for maybe on boats.
So you had a story, speaking of boats, you had a story about the river and flooding.
So when we first got to Cambodia, we were unpacking our suitcases. We moved into a rented house. We were learning the language little by little. My dad and my mom would go to someone's house and say, hello, we want to learn your language. Can you talk with us? That's all we can say.
Mhm.
And they were making an announcement that the river was rising, but we couldn't understand it. Someone pointed
Oh
out the
no.
water coming up the road slowly towards our house. And we thought, it's not going to come in our yard. Our yard's high enough. And then a few hours later, it started coming through our gate and up our driveway. It was hard to do homeschool there because there was so many distractions and people always coming by
Yeah.
with a medical question, English classes in the house. And my mom's favorite saying was, stay
Mhm.
focused. And water started coming around my feet, and I saw
Mhm.
fish swimming by, and I said, Mom, can we have a flood day today? By the time the sun went down, the water had been coming up inch by inch all day long. We could sit, and our house was a tall house with stilts. We could sit on the
Mhm.
second floor and hang our feet in the water. There was so many insects, rats, snakes, spiders, bugs, ants. The ants were flooded out of their homes and they were climbing up the sides of our
Yeah.
walls, and each of them carried a little white suitcase, which was their eggs.
Ew.
There was ants on the windowsills
Yeah.
fighting for room to stand. There was rats on the stairs trying to climb in. Our monkey was climbing to the top of her cage. And after dark, we remembered that we needed to see if our monkey was okay. And she was holding on the top of her cage with her tail hanging in the water. And we
Wow.
shined a flashlight across the front yard and we told my dad, you need to go bring her some food. And he said, I'm not going in the water. There's snakes out there. And he finally took a cupboard and stapled a tarp to the outside of it and made a little temporary boat. He couldn't reach the sides to paddle with his hands, so he said, "Find me something to paddle with." So we gave him a broom to paddle with, and he put a banana in his pocket, and he put the flashlight in his mouth, and he started out across the dark, murky water. And he went under a tree, and he saw some snakes on the tree branch, and he went tipping back and forth, and he got to the monkey's cage, and he was tipping and trying to keep his balance and shaking some, and he put his hand on top of the monkey's cage to try to hold himself still so he could get the door open, and his hand moved. There were so many snakes that he didn't even touch the monkey's cage, and he screamed, "Ah!" And he lost his balance, and he fell in the water and dropped the flashlight, and we heard a scream, and we ran out, and it was just dark, and we couldn't see what was going on, and he swam back in the house so fast. He probably walked across the water, he was so scared.
Wow. So I'm sure everyone's wondering, did the monkey survive the flood?
The monkey did survive.
Oh, good.
I think she got scared though, because
Yeah.
there was snakes all around the top of her cage. But she was a sweet little monkey named Nikki. When she got older, we decided to let her go in the jungle on a place that we used to go for walks on Sabbath afternoon.
Mhm.
And later we went and saw her with other monkeys, and she had a little
Mm.
baby. And she
Oh.
showed us her baby, but she wouldn't let us hold it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was called the 40-year flood, but it
Okay.
happened to me. I've been in Cambodia 15 years. It's happened to me maybe 5 times.
Okay.
And we were living in the house with all those bugs for a month,
Mhm. Mm.
and there was no clean water because all the water was flooded and our well was flooded out. So we
Yeah.
collected rainwater to cook with and shower with. And when the flood went down, we cleaned up our house and we had church down on the ground level of our house. And one of our
Mhm.
friends said, "Now," to my parents, he said, "Now I know that you love the Cambodian people because you cared about us and didn't go away when it flooded."
Mm. Wow, what a testimony. That's amazing. It just reminds me of how important it is that we don't just say that we love Jesus, or we don't just say that we want people to know about Jesus, but they're watching our lives, and they're watching how we live and how we act, and the things that we do, and how much it means to them when we're there in the tough times and we don't give up, but we stick with it. That's really powerful. How can we learn more about your mission project? What's a way to stay in touch with you, or a good way to learn more about what you and Stephanie are doing there in Cambodia?
If you like to keep in touch with Stephanie and I and hear updates and get pictures and stories about what's going on, you can email us. Our email is our names, Josh, Steph, Lewis at gmail.com. JOSHSTEPHLEWIS at gmail.com. And if you email us, we will send pictures and updates, and you can get to know some of our friends that we are studying the Bible with and that we love very much there. We also have a website called afmonline.org, and you can search for our names, and they have stories that we have written over the last 3.5 years. There's one called Sambat the Snake, which is about a snake that used to live in our house. Maybe I can send you a link to that story.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely. Well, thanks, Josh, for sharing and being willing to tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a missionary. And it's neat because you have experiences as a child, and then you also have experiences now as an adult. And so it's all working together, and it's really encouraging to see how God has been leading and guiding in your life. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing with us. And kids, if you want to get in touch with Josh and Stephanie and see what their project is like, go to the website afmonline.org, and you can find their names there. We'll search for their names and find them, or you can email them and be able to get their newsletter. So we're subscribed to their newsletter, and I really enjoy getting it and reading the stories.
ขอบคุณชรานជំរាបលា
We're so glad you joined us today. If you want to find more programs and activities, go to our website, startingwithjesus.com.